Today was a towering day for justice. As we saw, Ghislaine Maxwell was sentenced to 20 years in prison for the crimes she committed against these survivors and so many others. Today showed us that individuals can be held accountable irrespective of power and privilege. And today showed us that the chorus of voices of these survivors prevailed and showed accountability. It's really a victorious day for justice. And on behalf of all the survivors we've represented, we want to thank the prosecutors for their fierce and relentless pursuit of justice here. We want to thank the judge for being just and true and thoughtful. And we want to thank all of you for never stopping and continuing to pursue this story and make sure that their voices were heard.
May this sentence demonstrate that it is never too late for the truth to come out and never too late for there to be accountability. If you're someone who's experienced sexual abuse or exploitation and did not feel safe to report those crimes, or were not believed when you did, or were told that the perpetrators would not be held accountable, this is for you. There's still a lot of work to be done on this issue, but in this fight we need to celebrate the victories, and today this is a big victory.
Our client, Ghislaine Maxwell, has been vilified, pilloried, and it left little room for her to be treated fairly, because even before she stepped forward into this courthouse, she was being tried and convicted in the court of public opinion. Ghislaine will appeal this case, and we are confident that she will prevail on appeal.
I remember feeling frustrated, disappointed, and really, it felt personal. I was really sad. As an American, I was disgusted. It was unpatriotic. It was un-American. We were watching the Capitol building get defaced over a lie. The valet had articulated that the president was extremely angry at the Attorney General's AP interview and had thrown his lunch against the wall.
Do you believe the violence on January 6 was justified morally?
Take the fifth.
You believe the violence on January 6 was justified legally?
Fifth.
General Flynn, do you believe in the peaceful transition of power in the United States of America?
The fifth.
Newly elected Republican Congresswoman Mayra Flores calls out House Speaker Nancy Pelosi after appearing to shove her young daughter during a swearing-in ceremony.
I was very disappointed and very disgusted by it. No child should be pushed to the side for a photo. But my message to Nancy Pelosi is that we're going to push her and her friend Vicente Gonzalez in November.
House host Tommy Lahren joins us now. Tommy, good morning to you. So you see the video, and now you have Pelosi's Deputy Chief of Staff, Drew Hamill, coming to the Speaker's defense, saying it's sad to see news outlets that know better misrepresent the Speaker's effort to ensure Representative Flores' daughter wouldn't be hidden behind her in all of the photos of such an important moment for their family. What do you make of this?
I mean, the video is pretty cut and dried there. I've never seen someone try to move someone with their elbow before in such a delicate and loving way. But, you know, what this really reminds me of, guys, is that part of The Grinch Stole Christmas when the Grinch sees Cindy Lou Who and she says, "Why are you taking our tree?" And the Grinch says, "I'm just taking it back to the shop to fix some of the lights." That is exactly what Nancy Pelosi and her team are trying to pull here. The video is cut and dried. She's clearly elbowing the little girl out of the way for whatever reason. It doesn't look good, and I wish that some of the time Nancy Pelosi would just answer for herself. She always does all of this through her comms team, including addressing her husband's DUI. I think Nancy needs to speak about it. If in fact she really was just trying to do the right thing and fix the Christmas tree, then let's hear it from Nancy herself.
The little girl stands there with her hands on her hips, resolute. It was just as much a display of the little girl being strong, like her mom said. She basically didn't take the shove. She moved right back in the spot where she wanted to be. All right, Tommy, moving on. A high school football coach will be able to pray on the field after the Supreme Court ruled he was wrongfully punished for doing so. Let's take a listen to his reaction.
I think every American should have the same freedoms of everybody else. The First Amendment is very clear, and I think it's awesome that that this was a big win, and it totally protects all Americans. So I don't expect to be any rioting whatsoever on this. I think everybody should be partying right now and just saying, hey, the First Amendment is alive and well for all Americans, people of faith, different faiths, or no faith at all.
Tommy, what does this mean for religious freedom in places like schools? Do you think we can bring prayer back without being fired for it now?
Well, hey, listen, I don't think we're quite there yet, but this is a big victory for religious freedom and for the First Amendment. Now, let's all remember that this coach was kneeling and praying on the field after games, and it only became such an issue when other players decided to join him and were inspired by his praying, were inspired by his message. Now, he didn't compel them to do so. He didn't force them to do so. They were simply inspired by his faith. And if that's the worst thing that's going on high school campuses in America, I think that's okay. Now, the left is just upset that their narrative did not win. Of course, they would rather have people be inspired by Karl Marx than the Holy Bible. But this also goes back to the hypocrisy of the left, because I think we all know that if this coach were kneeling for BLM or for George Floyd, I think the left would feel a little bit differently about this. But because it was kneeling in prayer, that's why they're all up in arms. This has nothing to do with the separation of church and state. This was a private moment, and the First Amendment and religious freedom and liberty won in this case. Amen.
Make sure to check out Tomi Lahren is Fearless, airing live on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays on Outkick. Tommy, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, guys. And I just want to say today is my mom's 60th birthday, so happy birthday, Trudy Lahren, and thank you guys so much for having me.
Happy birthday. She raised a beautiful daughter inside and out.
Thank you so much.
The president's response to that, according to the witness, was searing when he just said, let them all in, take down the mags, take down the machines, let them all in. There were people with AR-15s, there were people with guns and knives, let them all in because they're no threat to him. So it didn't trouble him that there were armed people ready for violence in the crowd, in the mob that day. And that confirms that this was a president who was willing to do anything to overthrow the presidential election of 2020 and clearly had violence within his sights on that day.
Mr. Raskin, we heard a lot of new information today. What do you consider the most significant piece of testimony from Cassidy Hutchinson today?
Well, I found that to be quite astounding and eye-opening. We had the President of the United States upset that the Secret Service and other authorities were using metal detectors for people entering his rally, and he wanted those taken down so everyone could enter, including people who were armed. And there were official reports of people carrying AR-15s on that day. So to me, that's something that the American public needs to think about. This crowd was obviously armed and dangerous, and they were hell-bent on entering the Capitol. And this witness simply blew away any pretense that the president and all the president's men didn't know what was actually going on in that crowd.
They did. The committee took somewhat of a gamble today. This was a last-minute hearing. Cassidy Hutchinson was a relatively lower-ranking official. Do you think this paid off?
Well, first of all, Cassidy Hutchinson's office was between that of the President of the United States and the White House Chief of Staff. She was the advisor to the White House Chief of Staff, and she's a young woman of extraordinary poise and understanding and insight. And today we learned she was a young woman of extraordinary patriotism, too, because she demonstrated a lot of courage when there are still some people out there who've not summoned up the kind of courage she's had to tell the truth.
It was said that there was four testimonies that she gave to you guys behind closed doors. Was this last one in the last 10 days, which is why you guys called this surprise hearing?
She spoke to the committee several times, and her testimony today included aspects of all of the prior conversations.
Does the committee have any more evidence of witness tampering?
The evidence of witness tampering that the committee has released are the two episodes that the vice chair cited today anonymously for obvious reasons. It's a crime to tamper with witnesses. It's a form of obstructing justice. The committee won't tolerate it, and we haven't had the chance to fully investigate it or fully discuss it.